Hello, I'm Mallory Shansfeld, Managing Editor of Orthodontic Practice US, a Medmark publication. Welcome to an educational presentation and question and answer with Dr. Neil Warshawsky. In our webinar today, we'll discuss advanced tools and strategies to further elevate the performance of clear aligner treatment, including a new aligner system called AirFlex. Associated with this presentation is a free CE quiz. At the end of the webinar, we will email all registrants the presentation replay along with instructions on how to access the CE quiz. Before we get started, I'd like to invite everyone to use the question and answer feature in the control panel to ask any questions, and they'll be answered at the end of the session as time permits. Now I'm pleased to introduce our speaker. Dr. Neil Warshawsky is the founder and owner of Get It Straight Orthodontics, a leading orthodontic practice in the Chicago area. He holds a Doctor of Dental Surgery, Master of Science, and Certificate of Orthodontics from the University of Illinois at Chicago. A board-certified orthodontic specialist since 1992, he's been teaching at his alma mater for over 30 years and has served as Director of Orthodontics since 2011. Dr. Neil is a speaker and key opinion leader for OrthoFX and receives financial compensation for its products mentioned in this webinar. He's also a clinical advisor for OrthoFX and was one of the first orthodontists to provide AirFlex Aligner treatment. Thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Neil. Now I'll turn over to you to learn more about the topic for today.
Thank you, Millie. I really appreciate the opportunity just to kind of share with everyone what we've been doing for the last couple of years and how the industry's changing, and it's really exciting. And it is a transformational moment in the orthodontic industry where events that were out of our control, like COVID, has made us reassess like how we do things and look at efficiencies and just workflows and stuff like that. So I'm really excited just to share a little bit about my practice, what we're up to, and kind of like how we've evolved with times. So a little bit about myself. I'm from Chicago. I went to school at the University of Illinois for all 5 of my degrees. I started in Champaign, ended in the city. Got my dream job. I started my own practice back in 1992. I really liked the craniofacial stuff at the university and couldn't get hired there, but I got hired the next year at the University of Chicago. I was there up till 2006. Moved over to the University of Illinois at around 2011, and I've been Director of Orthodontics in the Craniofacial Center ever since. That's in addition to my private practice, Get It Straight Orthodontics. So if you look in the second column from the left, you'll see my team. That was us at the Dolphin meeting 2 years ago when we came back from COVID. And I'm super, super fortunate to be supported by love of my life, my high school girlfriend. So we've done it all together. It's pretty crazy. We've been together almost 44 years. 3 kids, a business. We've gone through ups and downs, and I'm just blessed that I've got a good person who puts up with me, because I'm not the easiest person to put up with. If I'm not at work or at home, you may find me doing some fun things. I do have a couple of hobbies. I like to do anything digital. I have a little cabin up north in the middle of nowhere that gives me absolute peace of mind. I love to ski. I photograph things. I'm a Boy Scout leader. My kids are Eagle Scout and Life Scout. I'm a wood badger, if you know what that means. I just like being outdoors. So, I'm a simple guy. I love to barbecue. I love to cook for people. It's kind of one of my passions. But really, at the end of the day, here's the thing I've taught my kids. Do something you're passionate about. Make a difference. People notice. That's it. Do those 3 things. Life's not so bad. All right. So tonight, our learning objectives are pretty simple. We're going to talk about key factors that are influencing the aligner movement at this point in the world. We want to recognize efficiency and how to create efficiencies, comfort, convenience, stuff like that. And most importantly, we're going to look at some cases, because really, you and I all know the truth, right? Cases are really where it's at. So our agenda is really simple. We're going to talk a little bit about what I've done in the past with clear aligner therapy. We're going to talk about some new systems we've added to support what we do. And then ultimately, we're going to see cases. So it's fair to say that I'm not a stranger to clear aligner therapy. I was fortunate back in the day to actually be the poster child for Invisalign for an entire year in the AJO. And they ran this ad, a full page ad for an entire year with my picture on it, and then put me on the booth, no less, up in Toronto, like a 13-foot tall picture of me. And it was crazy. It was like surreal. I was doing a lot of Invisalign, and I really thought, like, I want to be an adult orthodontist. I knew I was going to get children. I really focused on adults because I'm in like Wrigleyville area in Chicago, which is near the where the Cubs play, and I'm close to downtown. And I thought, like, if I can concentrate on making adults happy, I thought, like, hey, maybe there's something to it. And it was this new company called Invisalign that really kind of caught my attention. And I started using them right in 1999. My first case took 13 months to return, and it was the son of someone who was in Parliament in Saudi Arabia, who was a very important person. They came in with armed guards. They put up with the fact that it took 13 months. I was the third orthodontist to finish the case, to look at the case and treat it, and I was the only one that actually got it across the finish line. So, it was a learning lesson for me that, this was a disruptive concept. I didn't really understand where the journey was going to take me, but I was super excited to do this. If you looked at like kind of what's been going on in our practice, it's been really 25 years since we started, offering clear aligners. Probably more than 25 years, to be honest, because we were doing Essex before that. I want to say if you look at the averages, like we were probably averaging almost 12 visits to see a clear aligner case. This is easy cases, hard cases, whatever. And we were probably averaging close to 3 refinements per case. And we were asking people to do 22 hours per day wear, as much as they could. And, the truth of the matter is, I believe that patients lie to me. I believe that people tell me they wear 22 hours a day, and I really don't think they do. If you look at a study, this is a study that I'm quoting. You can see the citation down below. This study shows that most patients don't wear their aligners 22 hours a day. In fact, more than 50% of patients wear them less than 22 hours a day. And it's this lack of compliance which actually causes a lot of trouble with trying to get cases finished, right? So, I want to throw this out there. Like the very first rule for successful treatment is really simple. Do you want to be held hostage by your patient? And I think the answer is I don't. I really don't. So, I'm pretty sure that you will agree with me that what you want to do isn't work harder. What you want to do is work smarter. So today, I'm bringing to you a couple cheats, okay? 3 to be specific. New technologies that I utilize daily in our practice. Now, it's not just for clear aligner therapy, but we're going to talk tonight about clear aligner therapy and how it's changed my efficiency in tracking in my patients. So the first hack I want to talk about is remote monitoring, or teledentistry, if you will, okay? I have to say that I really honestly believe that if you're going to offer, and I'm not talking about a relapse, so I'm talking a real case. If you're going to talk about doing a full clear aligner case, I think remote monitoring's mandatory at this point. And the reason being is because it's like watching gray paint dry, right? You do not need to see the patient every single week. You just need to know where you're at. So I happen to use a product called Grin, and to be fair, this is a friend of mine who started the company, Adam Schulhoff, and he asked me to be, an advisor for the company. So I've known about this product for a while. And this is just not me being paid to say this. This is me telling you what I really pay for every day in my practice. I pay for this product. And the benefits to me are real-time adjustments in patient care. If I see something that I don't like in a recorded scan from a patient, I literally text them back immediately saying, hey, or I'll have an employee text them back immediately saying, hey, wear that aligner another week. Don't move forward. And that's a really big deal because what we're seeing is better compliance, better efficiency, and most importantly, our cases are streamlining and they're finishing faster with less refinement. Okay. So the workflow, when you're using remote monitoring, it's kind of busy, but see if you can follow along with this. we invite a patient to the platform and we actually hand them the scope. That's the piece that goes on their camera on their cell phone. In person, we demonstrate in person how to use it. Then, when we sign them up, we send them an email which comes back and they confirm it. And when they confirm that email, once they confirm it, my grin specialist will actually then start to contact them with them regularly. So in clear aligner therapy, we have them check in weekly. And each week when they check in, they're going to do 2 scans, one scan with the tray on and one scan with the tray off. That person from Grin talks directly with my treatment coordinator as well as with me. So she knows how to get me directly, but at the same point in time, when a patient sends an image in, I get a text saying that they've sent a check-in in, and I'm able to see it if I want to look at it. If not, I let my grin care specialist handle it. So all the communication is handled by her. Think of this like as having a remote employee, right? She doesn't work in my office. She works for my office. And she's on the clock a lot. Like it's crazy what time these scans come in. And to her, I love Debbie. So Debbie just responds like the sweetest person. Like all hours of the day and night she responds. And she's amazing. So there's this ongoing communication constantly with the patient, right? And what's cool about it, it's not just about clear aligner therapy, right? Like there's a little AI and there's some smart things in this software. So we're monitoring their oral hygiene. We're tracking their ability to maintain and keep their tray clean, and how well the attachments look, and if we see something broken, and we're making sure that they're staying on track. Most importantly, we're giving them a piece of advice like proceed, go to the next tray, or don't move forward, wear this another week because the tray doesn't look like it's fully played out. So, it's interesting when you give somebody a box of plastic and they just are wrapping their teeth in plastic and you're not paying attention, you're droning on, you're doing 2.5 to 3 refinements a case. I don't even believe in refinements anymore. We don't really refine anymore because we're actively managing our cases. We will rescan a case for efficiency when we think or when I believe that I've got more surface of the tooth exposed than when I started. So cases with severe rotations, even though we might have like 45, 50 trays, I may stop at tray 25 to 30 and rescan because I have more surface that's available for the tray to touch. So as a result of that, it's not a refinement, it's actively building it forward. So this is just a different philosophy, if you will. As far as aligners themselves, there's a little bit of AI here in that we're tracking the aligner progression using real AI, and it's a little bit like a stoplight, right? So every tooth is being analyzed. A two-dimensional scan from Grin is being assessed against a three-dimensional treatment plan that we are feeding into the system. We're sending our full stage treatment plans into the system for it to compare it against. And what we're finding out then is how well teeth are doing. So it's not just me or Debbie looking at the case saying, "Hey, you look great, proceed." We actually have some real data here that supports it, and it's given us feedback in the sense of like a stoplight, right? Green means go, yellow means it's not quite fully tracking, but that's okay because I know that cases can have lag, and lag's not a bad thing. It just means that the teeth are moving slower. So sometimes you have to leave a tray on for an extra week or so. That's all right. Red, you're really far off of where you should be. So why would you continue on this tray? Why not instead just stop, rescan, pause it for a second? Let's get you refocused. That makes sense. So to me, it's kind of like a stoplight, and I want all my cases to look green. So I believe, and this is a very strong statement that I will stand by, that remote monitoring properly used reduces refinements and keeps your clear aligner cases running more efficiently. Hack number 2, photobiomodulation. I know, that's a mouthful. So let's take this apart. What does that really mean? Well, photo from the Greek means light. Bio, combining the form of Greek bios for life, and then lastly, modulation, the exertion or of a modifying or controlling influence on something. So we're using light to control life and we're going to modulate it. Okay, so if you're a basketball fan and you like watching March Madness or something like that, have you ever seen someone hit the ground with a sprained ankle, and it's like getting close to the end of, the tournament or or it's the NBA and they're getting the quarterfinals or something like that. Someone sprains an ankle and 3 days later you see them back on the floor playing. You're like, I thought that guy sprained his ankle. How's he playing or how's she playing? Do you ever wonder what they do in the training rooms besides shooting them up with Marcaine? Well, typically what'll happen is they wrap their ankles in a red light blanket. So red light is near infrared light is something that is used in training rooms. It's very real. It's very documented for healing soft tissue injuries. So OrthoPulse is a device that we use in our practice. It is near infrared red light therapy that goes intraorally in the mouth for 10 minutes a day, promotes cell metabolism, bone remodeling, and reduces pain and inflammation. And it's FDA Class 2 medical device. The way it works is by stimulating the mitochondria in the cell walls to create ATPase. It adjusts the reactive oxygen species and it produces nitric oxide. And between those three things, it leads to a proliferation of osteoblasts and osteoclasts, which causes orthodontic tooth movement, thus accelerating tooth movement and reducing um, discomfort and pain. So it's just a hack that actually theoretically works. The third hack that I like that I apply here is just a better aligner. All right. So really, I got to ask you the question, is this just a pipe dream or is this really a reality? Can you really have a better aligner, maybe a better material, it's constructed better, you can wear it less, or it's got more consistent force delivery? Because if you can do this, then maybe there's actually something to this. So, so, so I'm kind of fortunate. I know a fair number of people in the industry. A couple years ago, friends of mine came and knocked on my door once they knew that I was able to talk to them, and they said they wanted to show me a product, and that product was something called AirFlex. I have to say, the guys that are behind this and the women that are behind this are the people that basically started the clear aligner industry. Nobody knows about this company. It's a pretty small company. This is the best aligner constructed in the industry right now, if you would ask me. And it's a new type of polymer. It's constructed in a way that no one's ever constructed a tray before. It's FDA cleared to be worn for 50% less time, and patients don't feel any discomfort with it. So really, at the end of the day, it's pretty impressive. So how does this really work? Well, it's based on something called a torus cross section. Really, all you need to know is most clear aligners are usually layered plastic that are all glued together. It's usually like I call it an Oreo cookie. It's usually polyurethane in the middle or on the outside. In this scenario, in AirFlex, you actually have a completely different construction that no one's ever been done like this before. It's actually two layers of plastic. It's welded on the edges, and it's actually a very, very, very thin layer of air between the two layers. The two layers are not bonded. They are super, super thin. So when you put this tray on, that inside tray always fits. The outside tray sometimes has to adapt over the course of the week, right? So if you look at this, what this explains is usually a standard aligner will fit only for one tray, right? So if you're on stage 15, they'll fit for 15, maybe they'll fit for 16, but nothing more. An AirFlex tray can fit up to four stages. So if you were like on say 15, it could fit through 15, 16, 17, or 18, right? It could fit on several different stages and still get all the way on. And it's because of the torus cross section. So again, this is just a pictorial showing you on the top, stage 10 and stage 14, the AirFlex fits on both models. If you look at Zendura FLX, which is probably the most popular plastic used by manufacturers right now, it fits on stage 10 and 11, then stops. Zendura A, which was the original material used by Align, also fits on stage 10 and 11 and stops after that. So when you're looking at the first principle in orthodontic tooth movement, which is optimal force, what you'll see is when you're tipping a tooth, it needs somewhere between 35 to 90 grams of force. Translation, bodily translation, somewhere between 70 and 190. Torque, somewhere between 50 and 150. Rotation, somewhere between 35 and 90. Extrusion, 35 to 90. Intrusion, 10 to 30. So you're understanding here that depending on what you're doing, right, that determines how much force you do or don't need, right? Now the question is how much force does a normal tray exert on a tooth in order to make that tooth move? Well, on a standard tray puts a ton of force on day one. It could be easily over 1,000 grams, you know? And then after the tooth moves a little bit, after, it starts to move, it drops off and then it plateaus. With the AirFlex trays, because of the fact that the inside and the outside layer are not bonded, the torus cross section allows the two trays to actually slide past each other, and that air gap is actually a sealed air gap, sort of like shock absorbers on a car, right? It absorbs some of the stress. So the most force that this tray is ever putting on the teeth, whether it's on day one or day seven, is under 200 grams, right? But you'll see a huge amount of drop in the stress and the strain on a standard tray. When you look at tooth movement itself, what you find is with a standard tray, which is in red here, it'll start to move on day one because there's a lot of force, too much force, matter of fact. And as the tooth moves, the stress of the tooth moving will cause the force to drop dramatically to the point that suddenly the tooth gets stalled out because it doesn't have enough force to keep it moving. AirFlex, on the other hand, has a consistent amount of force that keeps it moving from the first to the last day of treatment. And on that last day, I'm assuming you're going to go into your next tray. And this is all based on standard velocity of a 1/4 millimeter linear velocity of tooth movement. So there was an FDA study that studied the AirFlex product, right? And what independent doctors did was they judged the tooth movement of these trays for 9 hours a day and 12 hours a day. And what they found was even at 12 hours a day, the tooth movement was still actually appropriate and actually pretty good. Now, it wasn't perfect, but it was actually very acceptable. So this was the first product that was ever able to demonstrate in a study that if you wore it for less than 22 hours a day, there was still controlled, predictable tooth movement. And in fact, the FDA certified it for 9 to 12 hours of wear. I don't like to tell people to wear it for 9 to 12 hours. I like to tell people that this is a compliance-friendly tray. That means that if you go to work or you go to school and you don't want to wear it, you can take a break for part of the day, get it back on later when you can, and you won't lose any ground in terms of efficiency. But keep in mind, I'm also tracking my patients using remote monitoring, and I'm making sure that they're not proceeding to the next tray unless they check in with us. So when we look at the AirFlex mean effectiveness in tooth movement, what we found is, or what they found, is that when it comes to expansion, AirFlex almost 100% of the time works well. When you look at an average tray, expansion only works out about 45% of the time, sometimes less. So, so all of this stuff, whether it's expansion, mesial distal movement, extrusion, tipping, torquing, rotation, what it was able to show consistently, and this is validated in the FDA study, is that the the air shell technology in the AirFlex was was twice as effective as a standard tray, almost twice as effective. Okay, so the truth is, it is possible to build a better aligner. I think that's amazing. So let's look at some cases and see how it responds. So the first case we're going to look at is a severe relapse with a Bolton discrepancy. This is a 59-year-old patient who has a canine substitution, who's been treated as a teenager, who has severe recession on multiple teeth, okay, and has unsuccessfully tried the largest clear aligner therapy, self-ligating brackets, lingual brackets, and is coming back because still wants their teeth aligned. Now, the thing that was most important here was this patient was incredibly adverse to discomfort. Now, I'm just going to be honest to tell you that this is the girl that I grew up next door, and this is like my sister. So, like, if I can't experiment on people that I love, I'd be lying, right? So it's like, so anyways, my neighbor, she came to me and said like, it's like, the kids are getting married. I want to fix my teeth. And I'm like, I think I finally have a product for you. But I don't want you to believe me. I want you to hear it from her because I think she's going to explain it to you better than I ever would about how comfortable this material is. Totally doing this. This is live. All right, so like I've known you my entire life, right? Since my entire life. So like I can't do anything but good stuff to like my people, right? So you had braces as a kid, right? And you talked about how you were missing. You have a canine substitute. Yeah, your eye teeth or your second teeth. But you're a good substitution. You're one of the rare ones, right? So then you come back to me as an adult. You got a couple kids. Your son Danny's right there in the chair. Hello, Danny.
We're servicing the whole family.
Whole family's here now. Yeah, it's funny, right? So, what did you tell me about the aligners today? You're on aligner 20 of OrthoFX.
Aligner 20.
Yeah.
Basically, if I had to stop now, I would be happy, and I'm not even
Right.
close to being stopped.
Right. But what did you
And
say?
The big thing was no pain.
No pain
at all.
whatsoever. Right. Right.
Not one bit.
Right. And let's be honest. Were you a good patient for me in the past?
Yes.
Yes.
I was.
Right. So we've tried aligners before. It didn't work. This
We
is
tried behind
yeah
the teeth,
behind the teeth too. Yeah. We've done it all for you.
and this worked unbelievable. Honestly, unbelievable.
And is your sister doing the same stuff?
She is.
Right? Like we got a couple weddings coming right now, so
Right.
so we have
we needed the push.
yeah, we needed so we have a real reason. And at the end of the day, you were surprised, right?
I was very surprised. Yes,
Okay.
I was surprised how quick and really easy. Really,
Okay.
really easy.
Okay, that's all I needed. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Totally doing this. This is live. All right, so here's her x-rays, and you can see her x-rays. Here she is that day that she recorded the video. This was stage 20 of that day. And you can see her recession hasn't gotten any worse. Stage 20 is on the right, stage 1 is or stage 0 is on the left. She's absolutely aligning nicely. What's really important to understand is how good the torque came through on this. So look at the torque control on tooth number 9, that left central incisor. It's beautiful, right? And you can see the arch form is kind of expanding. It looks good. On the lower, nothing states it better than looking at tooth number 21, lower left, first premolar. Look how poorly it was dumped. It was dumped to the lingual. This is completely uprighted. It's in good alignment. Again, this just happened to be when she walked in and I took photos, nothing crazy. Um, and this was just I really thought she was going to bomb out on this stuff. I didn't know what to expect. Here she was completed. Um, Time took 10 months. It was 26 stages. Number of refinements was 0, which I like. And if you look at, what we did, the overlay of the prediction for versus what we did is on the left, the actual photograph is on the right, and the treatment plan is on, I'm sorry, is in the middle. And the treatment plan that we planned was on the right. So really like this was really like right on the money and finished 6 days before her nephew's wedding. So timing was good. I finished her sister the week before her, so I looked good for sure. And my observations from, treating her and her sister were that lots of attachments really don't make a lot of sense. I didn't use a lot of attachments here. I think a better fitting tray actually was a key component for the efficiency, and the air shell technology was just something I'd never been able to use before, and it was just incredibly effective. All right, so here's case number 2 is a mild orthodontic relapse, not nearly as hard. More likely what you're going to see every day in your office, right? And the question is, especially when you're talking about people who've been treated in the past, I just have this rule in my head, never do the same thing what you did the first time because they're back for treatment, right? So this happens to be a 34-year-old female who happens to be a resident in a plastic surgery program where I work. And she had pretty much, a deep overbite, a little bit increased overjet, wanted to kind of clean her teeth up a little bit. And most importantly, right out of the gate, she's like, I'm not going to wear these full time because I'm not going to wear them in the OR, and I'll wear them mostly in the evening. I said, okay, I only have one product I can even offer you that may work, you know. So these are her x-rays. This is what she looks like, final results. Not a very exciting case. I'm not trying to show anything. She certainly didn't break any land speed records. This one took closer to 11 months. It was a total of 24 stages. Um, some of the reasons why it took long was, she took a 4-month reprieve in the middle, stuff like that. But not bad or good. She continued to wear her tray, while she was not moving forward. But it's fine. It's like, I mean, this is the reality of, treating adults, right? Not a bad result. And, that top image shows you how she started. The bottom image shows you how she finished. And if you would look at, the summary of the 24 stages and how we did, um, pictures on the left show you how she initially presented to me. The pictures in the middle show you how I finished her. The pictures on the right are what we had predicted. And to be completely honest, like I could have probably even treatment planned her a little tighter on those lower anteriors. And, I think I probably didn't pay enough attention on that when I was reviewing my treatment plan, but it's still not a bad result. Case number 3. Um, this is a lovely lady. She is a pilot for American. She just retired. She's a Class 2 Division 1, 50%. One of the challenges here is her upper arch is already completely reconstructed, and I'm only treating one arch, and it's a pretty deep bite. So she's very crowded. 27's blocked out. 26 is pushed out to the lingual. Um, and she's got a pretty large deviation on her midline. So I'm kind of bound by the upper teeth here, and I want to try and do the best thing possible for her and give her a nice result. Um, I will tell you that she could be one of my favorite patients ever. She was just always in a good mood and just didn't have a bad word to say about anybody. And I just enjoy people like that. So this is her at stage 8 as she is starting to progress through. You can see it from the front. It's, again, kind of hard to tell. You can see some of our attachments. Here she is from the occlusal view. And just to give you an idea of how she's tracking, you can see the torque on tooth number 26 is starting to correct a little bit. You can see the torque on tooth number 23 is also starting to correct a little bit. Here's the imaging of the treatment plan at stage 14, showing you where she should be. And you can see her teeth and you can see the treatment plan. You can see she's tracking pretty well. Nothing too crazy, and there's the teeth at that stage, very close to what that imaging is showing you. Here she is, stage 32, and you'll appreciate she sends me these really fun emojis when she's feeling good about it. So I don't think anything speaks higher than patients who send you emojis. So and they're not like mean emojis. They're like I'm a rock star. I look really good. Thank you for fixing my teeth type emojis. So very fun. Case number 3. Case out of my craniofacial center. Met her 3 days before Christmas. And this is a 20-year-old who's been in treatment for 7 years, according to the patient, who's been through expansion, who still has a full crossbite, who has an anterior open bite, and she's got a history of a cleft palate. So I got roped into the room to meet her, and so I looked at her quickly. I'm like, oh, okay, nothing crazy. You got a crossbite, anterior open bite. I'm like, you need an expander. She's like, well, I've already been treated with an expander. I'm like, I just looked at her. I'm like, I never treated you. So as far as I'm concerned, you need an expander. So I said, I would suggest you get expanded, and then after you're expanded, we can do some form of therapy. So she's like, well, I'm a junior in college and I'm going back to school next Monday. This was on a Wednesday when I met her. And I said, okay. So I said, I would probably use a Marpy just to be upfront with you because if you're telling me your expander failed, I want to make sure that this works. I said, Marpies generally are going to work. So I said, if you're serious, I said, I'll turn this around and I'll have this in your mouth on Friday, 2 days later. So they actually pulled the trigger pretty quickly. These are her images of her X-rays. This is how she started. And this is now 2 days before Christmas, one day before. No, it's not Chris. It was 2 days before Christmas, December 23rd, I think. And I inserted a Marpy, I screwed it in, said, see you later. And I didn't see her then for a little while. Here's how she walked into my office in February, stating like, I'm done doing my turns. I said, that's great. I said, we can go ahead and you know, do whatever you want. She chose AirFlex aligners because she really didn't want to have braces at her age. I said, that's fine. So this is the X-rays from the records going into build the AirFlex aligners. Here's the CT showing that the joints were healthy. So I was, pretty fortunate that she was just a nice patient and really just nice personality. Here she is checking in using remote monitoring. That's the image on the bottom center. The three pictures on the top were the treatment plan at stage 4. The pictures on either side of the remote monitoring happened to be that weekend she came home. She checked in with me in person. I happened to get real photography that day, and everything seems to match, which is just fantastic. Here she is at stage 12. These are actual results taken from photography in the office. Everything is still, may not be tracking perfectly. There's a little lag here, but she's still tracking pretty well. And trace still fit very well. So I didn't have any reason to stop her. What was really important, though, is at stage 12, what she said to me. My dark buccal corridor is gone. And even though she had a gap still between her teeth, she was so tickled about the change in her appearance. She's like, I don't understand why this couldn't be done earlier. And I just said to her, I've never held $1 million. It doesn't mean I don't want to. It doesn't really matter. All that matters is you're going in the right direction. At stage 23, I decided I wanted to take a scan because I had such a massive space between her initially. I really wanted to rescan her and rebuild her at this stage. So you can call it a refinement record, you can calling it building them forward, but I tossed the rest of the trays at this point and I scanned her to build clean trays moving forward to the end. Because you know as well as I do, sometimes in order to close an open bite, you have to procline teeth forward and then you have to tip them in, torque them in, whatever. So that's kind of so now my mechanics are now about to change because my goals are going to now effectively turn. Okay, meanwhile, aesthetically, she looked really good for 8 months. She was very happy. Um, and at this point, then I rescanned her. Here she is checking in January of last year. You can see just in a couple weeks, you can see the difference in the scans, how much the gap changes. It's very obvious. And what's most important here is you don't see any colored marks on the big image here. The AI will light up, plaque retention, it'll light up caries, it'll light up, um, inflammation. So her hygiene was great. I was really satisfied with, how well she checked in. And it's kind of funny, but college kids like to talk. So she was really good about checking in with me on her cell phone. So again, I'm going to repeat, I think it's mandatory at this point for my practice to use teledentistry or remote monitoring to check in with clear aligner therapy so that we just make sure people stay. And I don't care what brand you use, it doesn't really matter. The manufacturer offers free teledentistry, free remote monitoring through their system. I just happen to use Grin because I want to use the same system for braces and aligners, which is the way it works with me. So here she is completed. Total time was 16 months. Was 55 stages of aligners plus a MARPE. I did 2 scans on her after the initial scan, and that total again was 55 trays, and this was her before and after. So if you'd ask me, is this successful? I think, hello, yeah, for sure. This was really a nice case. Next case is a teenager, okay? Class 3 underbite, right? This is kind of tough because Bolton discrepancy, some really severe rotations. You can see that teeth are really weird, kind of wonky shaped, right? Presents as a class 3. Here she is. Really, she's just shy of edge to edge, but she'll her MIP position, puts her into more of a class 3-ish look, but so her initial ceph shows that position. Here's her initial panorax. You'll notice she doesn't have any wisdom teeth, and she sort of has short roots. So the corrected occlusion, once she deprogrammed, looked like this. And that's where we started. I put her in a deprogrammer for about 6 weeks, 8 weeks. Once I was convinced that she was feeling okay and I had an awful bite, that's where I took my records. Here she is 12 months into the case now. You can see clearly that she's wearing class 3 elastics. Her midline is on. She has positive overbite and overjet, and that she's got a little bit of inflammation and stuff like that, but as a rule, it's not bad. So when you look at like where she's at, this is what I'm doing now just to finish the case up. I'm just socking her in a little bit tighter. She's going to have the laterals built up. I'm just tightening her up a little bit. You can kind of sort of see, I just want to point out, I just want you to see that behind the left canines and the right canines in the maxillary arch, I actually have lingual attachments to help the rotations of the teeth because I'm wearing a vertical elastic from the buccal and my buttons are on the lingual, or my attachments are on the lingual. So now we're closing the bite. This is her first refinement. It's a 21 stage refinement, but she looks great. She's really happy. Parents are thrilled, because they didn't really know, what it was going to look like. This was her last week. She's at 22 months of progress, and she is 2 trays from being completed, but overall looks really good. Incredibly happy with her progress, and can't wait to build up the teeth, which we're going to have done before summer. So it's all good. That's her profile change. You can notice that she's not as prognathic. You can notice these lateral incisors, which are completely wonky shaped, have responded pretty nicely and are in position to get built up. The final refinement is just 17 stages, which is where she's at. I just gave you a preview of it a moment ago, and it's just designed to detail the bite. So overall, she looks really great. And I think this is a challenging case. Not very big teeth. They're kind of odd shaped. It's a teenager. She'll tell you she's not wearing it more than probably 14, 13 hours a day, but she's consistent. And that's her recent grin check. And you'll notice the image on the left, you'll actually see those aqua colored marks. That's the AI identifying inflammation, right? With and without aligners. So it's really, you can see the difference from scan 1 to scan 54, right? Really big changes. Her hygiene has gotten better because these are being pointed out to her. So literally, this shows you over the course of my mechanics, her hygiene actually improved. And look at the date, March 28th. This is recent. This isn't like I'm showing you stuff that's old. Nice result, nice improvement, positive kid. One of my favorite patients. Super, super, super sweet guy. He's 6'4". He looks like a famous basketball player, plays for the Lakers. You figure that one out. He's 57 years old. He's a full class 3, moderate underbite. He's got a negative overjet, retroclined incisors. He likes to bite in MIP, not CR. So I originally planned 61 stages for this guy. Here's his Ceph. Here's his Panorex. Here's his original treatment plan. And you can actually watch the teeth improving. And you can see how they're just slowly but surely jumping forward, right? See how he's starting to get overbite pretty quickly in the course of the duration of the stages. I took him out to stage 42. At stage 42, he started not to fit very well. We identified it through remote monitoring. By the way, this guy was spot on good about remote monitoring. So at 42, we rescanned him. Let me show you 7 months of progress. This is what he looks like. Pretty good, right? He has a little bit of space in the upper arch, but he's already positive overbite and overjet. Midlines are still on. He's great about wearing elastics. His hygiene is immaculate. Um, he just takes his stuff really seriously, and he really cares about his smile. So this is his 7-month progress. Looks pretty good. Midlines are on, like I told you, it looks good. So again, here he is. You can watch him getting tweaked in both arches. From both the occlusal view and from, so I'm working a little bit on buccal segment expansion here just at the end, just kind of tweaking them out. Not bad though. Here he is towards the end of his treatment, right? Checking in, spot on good. Again, they do 2 scans, one with their tray on, one with their tray off, right? Here he is completed in February of this year. Again, he's an adult. I still have a little bit of a class 3 molar. My canines are pretty close to being class 1. I'm not quite a full class 1 on the right side, but compared to where he started, much, much, much improved. Much improved. I think that's a nice result, especially because I look at his results and I look at what I planned, and he's pretty much where he should be. So this is a nice finish for just a very sweet person. And just at the end of the day, this was under a year and a half. It was 57 stages. We had one major refinement on him. But the nicest thing, like this is an unprompted thing, but I'm just telling you, like it's just he felt so compelled. He was so happy about his result that he didn't write me one 5-star review. He wrote me a 5-star review on 2 different platforms just because he couldn't say enough nice things about us, which is like I didn't even ask him to write a review, which I never would have thought he's the guy who would write it. I was like, I walked up to him, gave him a fist bump. I'm like, I love you. Like, you're the nicest guy ever. And I just really appreciate that. Now, really, I want to show you just a case that's just starting now to show you like why I really buy into this. Okay. This is an 81-year-old woman. Okay. Very, very crowded. She is restored with just a patchwork quilt of crowns and fillings and composites, and they're all different ages. She's not wealthy, okay? She has been told that she needs to do something orthodontically. I'm going to show you why for a second, right? Number 8, her right central incisor is really ectopically positioned. And we are going to extract some teeth, and here's why. So I want you to see on the right buccal segment, she's a full step class 2, okay? And here's her Ceph X-ray, and you can see the overjet. And I don't think the overjet's going to kill an 82-year-old, right? Here's the Panorex, but what you need to see through the cone beam film here is tooth number 19. So here's tooth number 19, which is completely destroyed. You can see that the molar behind it has eaten into the distal of the root, and this tooth has to be removed. So I'm like, okay, well, if you're taking this tooth out, we might as well take out the premolar on the upper and at least try to uncrowd you so we can pull your front tooth back in. So my treatment plan, you're going to think I'm totally nuts, is to, believe it or not, extract the upper right first premolar, the lower left first molar. We're going to close spaces on an almost 82-year-old lady using clear aligner therapy with photobiomodulation, and we're going to remote monitor as we go. She's going to have everything in my mix here to kind of show. So in summary, I practice what I preach, okay? I believe weekly monitoring is required for clear aligner therapy to stay on track because it will help you to avoid doing any types of refinement, right? Building forward is different than refinement, okay? Refinement means the case has failed, right? Building forward means you recognize that you want to change your mechanics or your direction. And I think this is the difference. This is how I practice today versus 20 years ago, right? I think photobiomodulation is just an interesting hack, okay? Learn a little bit about it, you might be impressed. I think this air shell stuff that we're using to treat cases is simply fascinating. It's accurate, it works well, and to be honest, I think it makes a lot of sense. And this polymer that AirFlex is made out of, it's just something you can't even argue with. This is coming from the person who developed the two most popular plastics in the world, not in the United States, in the world. One person developed the two most popular plastics, and now he's the guy that developed the polymer that's in the air shell. Okay, with that, I'd like to say nobody remembers who comes in second, so get it right the first time, right? Seriously. All right. Thanks a lot. I'm here to answer some questions, so hopefully you enjoyed this presentation.
Thank you, Dr. Neal. That was a great presentation. There are some questions coming in, but before I get to those, I'd like to remind everyone to use the question and answer feature in the control panel on your screen to ask any questions. First question, how do teeth continue to track with AirFlex if the patient is inconsistently wearing the tray?
Thank you for the question. That's a great question. So the AirFlex shell technology delivers somewhere around 160 grams of force on average to a tooth, and that amount of pressure on the tooth doesn't vary whether it's day 1 or day 7. That's the magic, right? A normal tray starts somewhere between 700 and 1,000 grams. It could be down to under 150 grams within 4 to 5 days. So when the tooth moves, the tray dramatically changes the amount of pressure on the teeth. So when teeth are overloaded with pressure, you see it's hyalinization of the periodontal ligament, and you get undermining resorption. You don't get frontal bone resorption and stuff like that, which is normal for real tooth movement. You kind of bully the tooth basically as a result. So the AirFlex uses a very, very low force vector, not vector, but just there's a very low force on the teeth, which causes the teeth to move. So there's not a big spike when you take the tray on and off. So it's not like, so every time you put the tray back on, it's not like you're bullying the tooth. That's why there's consistent tooth movement, even though the tray not be worn for 22 hours a day. Next question.
Next question, what kind of cases are you treating with AirFlex?
Well, if you paid attention to my last question and you saw or my last case and you saw the 81-year-old lady with the extractions, you'll realize I have a huge, huge variety in my practice. I'm associated with a lot of perio, so I love the AirFlex with perio cases because I think a lot of patients with periodontal disease get damned to losing their teeth because people think that, oh, orthodontics is too harsh and you can't have orthodontics because your teeth are going to fall out. And I'm thinking like, okay, well, if you're damning these people to have perio disease, they're going to fall out anyway. So why not try to help them? So this is just a very gentle product. The photobiomodulation, the AirFlex shell, weekly monitoring to keep them under control. All these things are just stop gaps, if you will, to keep people safe. And I think it's fair to say that the more gentle we are with people, um, the more likely they are to be responsive and actually follow through in their care because things don't hurt. And if you have a conversation with people weekly using some form of monitoring, what I've learned, which is really surprising to me, is people feel very bonded to our practice. I felt guilty when I'm averaging like 4 physical visits with a clear aligner case to go from start to finish, or 6 visits, and charging like thousands of dollars. And when I realized it's not about the number of visits in the practice, it's about having the relationship with them and being responsive. You know, one patient may need to come in every week because that person needs to have their hand held. But a lot of people, their time is valuable, and being able to monitor them is really a big deal. So I think it's just a fun way to practice. I'm really enjoying what I'm doing right now. I think that we're giving a lot of people an opportunity to get help in a manner that they can tolerate, which, because orthodontics just isn't going to be for fixed appliance therapy just isn't for everybody. It's just the reality. So it's just kind of newer thinking, and it's using some science, and it's being gentle, and I think it's good care. Next question.
Can you treat mixed dentition with AirFlex?
We can. So we are treating mixed dentition, and my favorite are my class 2 cases. I'm hoping to have a bunch of class 2 cases in the next year that I can show people, where we have even done all kinds of combination therapy, like where we can have a class 2 appliance in the back, and we can have AirFlex from premolar to premolar, uh, correcting the anterior dentition and bringing their buccal segments together while the AP is being corrected separately. And then we take the AP component off, and then we can uh, finish with the full tray. So super creative stuff. Way, way, way different than some of the other class 2 stuff that's currently out there. And this is like, I'm talking about full molar, full step class 2 correction. Uh, it rivaling or as good as fixed appliance therapy. I believe that's coming, and you're going to be able to see it for yourself soon enough.
The next question is very related to that. Can we use class 2 elastics with AirFlex, and how do I set it up?
Yes, thanks for asking the question. So it's a little different with this system because the trays are so gentle. Um, we never put the elastic on the tray for this system. The trays are just too gentle. So what happens is when you design your system, if you want to have like an AP component with an elastic, you'll just sculpt out a little space to put a hook on the tooth, like a ceramic or a plastic hook, and then the tray will fit around it. So you can wear your AP component, your elastic, on top of your trays. And during the day, if you don't want to wear your trays, you just don't wear your trays. You don't wear your elastics. At least, get your trays and your elastics on to go to bed, which is better than not at all, right? And, in addition to the class 2 component, then, you can, in your programming of your case, you can say, I'd like sequential distalization in the right buccal segment, or, whatever, and they'll program whatever you ask for. So with careful planning and a little bit of time on the treatment planning, I think you can really get very good results.
And how many patients have you treated with AirFlex aligners?
We're a little less than 200 right now, so I've had it. I've been fortunate enough to have it from the moment it's been available. So we received it, I want to say February 23rd, 2024. So so yeah, it's a little less than maybe 2023, I'm sorry. So it's a little just over 2 years. We've had it for just over 2 years. And it's a very difficult tray to build, and it is a premium product. I tell people that this is not the average clear aligner. This is a primo clear aligner. And it's I don't need to necessarily do this on every case. Simple, relapse cases don't require AirFlex. When a patient says to me, I don't want to wear it all the time, I only want to wear it at night, then I'll say, okay, well, you're going to have to pay a premium because there's only one company that's going to make a product that'll still work. Do you want to pay the premium and not wear it full time, or do you want to just do what we normally tell people and wear it 22 hours a day? And guess what the answer is? Yeah, you guessed it. people are willing to pay the extra money so they don't have to be 22 hours a day in the tray. And that's just kind of the reality of it.
And what our last question, what is the feedback from patients on these systems?
Very good, actually. We have several different, kind of ways we approach them. But what I'll say is this, eh, we layer different applications, different technologies on people for different purposes. So you can look at it in terms of how do I make my comfort better, or how can I go faster, right? Or I don't want it to show, or I want something removable, right? So at every level we have a different response, right? But I always tell people that this is a little bit like a smorgasbord, right? You're gonna eat what you want to eat. And so you need to tell us, be upfront with us, tell us the truth, right? What do you don't want to do? What do you do want to do? I oftentimes say to people like, give me your handcuffs. What won't you do? And when I hear what they won't do, that's usually what determines what comes out of my mouth. And what I'll tell you really realistically is I don't think it really matters what you charge, right? Because the people that are coming back in to get treated, or people are coming for the first time, especially people coming for the first time, they only want to get treated one time, right? There are a lot, and I mean, there are a lot of people out there that have had bad clear aligner therapy, right? It is a whole breed of people. There's everything from direct to consumer to just people who don't know what they're doing to just bad products. And, I tell people, I'm like, invest right the first time, and we will help you protect your investment. And that's it. We tell people, just let's do it right the first time and get it right. And we've had very, very positive feedback from all these different ideas. And it just people kind of tell us what they want, and we just layer stuff in and out based on what they need. So it's been incredibly enjoyable, actually. I want to say it's enjoyable to be able to talk to people and actually have them come back in a good mood and say, like, I can't believe this is working. This is great. My friends are wondering what I'm doing. I look better. Or like, my friend says that this doesn't work, but my clear aligners are working and my teeth look better than theirs. And, that's the type of feedback we're getting. And as long as I keep doing what I'm doing and I get feedback like that, for me, I like it. You know what I'm saying? Like I have nothing to prove at this point, right? I'm not trying to um, sell people like snake oil here. I only want to use stuff that makes sense every single day in my practice. I only want to use stuff that's predictable because, I don't want to waste their time. I don't want them to be upset with me. This is about being effective and efficient and just again, it's just a better way of doing something. I would hope after 25 years of clear aligner therapy, there has to be something new. There really isn't a lot new. What I'm showing tonight, this is all brand new stuff, and it's coming from people that are incredibly deeply grounded in the industry. So, it's exciting. And I hope people appreciate the fact that if they're willing to invest a little bit of time and to learn about what's out there, there are some really neat ideas right now that are just very effective, and a lot of people don't know about them. So all I care about is that my practice is successful, that when people mention our name, they mention positive things, not negative. So I don't know. I'm enjoying myself. I think people really like this, what we're offering. Not everybody picks, everything, but it's just again, it's about being able to know what to do and what not to do based on, people's inputs and desires.
Well, thank you for that great presentation. Thank you, everyone, for your questions. But we've run out of time today. If we did not get to your question, we will answer it after the webinar via email. Within 1 hour, we'll be sending you a link to the replay of the presentation and instructions on how to access the CE quiz. Please be sure to complete the free CE quiz associated with this webinar to receive your continuing education credit. Thank you, Dr. Neil Warshawsky, and our sponsor for this webinar, OrthoFX. Have fun and be safe out there.
Thank you.